down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
All right, everybody. Hey. Welcome to the Landlord Lunch in its brand new location. I hope nobody ended up down at the other office. I'm not going to ask for anybody to raise their hands. You're just like, okay, I don't care.
Well, no, you might want to change it on the meetup because it still
Oh, no.
Meetup deal.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to blame that on Steven.
Yeah.
Since he's not here.
Yeah, why not blame everything on him?
Okay, I have permission now. Everything. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I apologize for that.
Sign up for the text notifications, man.
The text, yeah, and I'm gonna pop that up here. The text is kind of the deal here in a second. We'll have the deal because that's where the most up-to-date stuff gets pushed, and I'll talk about that next Tuesday. Investor breakfast. Mr. Joe Ramsey, he's a real estate investor for quite a few years here. I don't know if you heard his podcast. It's been probably maybe a month or two ago. Has a lot of wisdom. He used to teach down at OCCC and stuff like that. Has helped Steven out like early in his career, kind of get started. And he's going to be talking next Tuesday. I think it's just good for maybe some questions and stuff. And he's got a lot of cool stories. They kind of bore Steven, but they amaze me, some of the stuff and how some of you guys that have been in the business for a while, the business changes. I think it's changing right now. Kind of had some conversations about, hey, the prices are kind of high. I'm cleaning my inventory out a little bit, stuff like that. So something to think about.
Is that going to be here? Or
everything's here now.
Everything's here.
Everything's here, regardless of what the meetup deal says. We have a little bit of space left here in the Red Tree Center. And it's a big space, but it's actually, we're doing pretty good here. I also want to mention Office Thrive. I didn't get the slide in there, but down on the second floor, there's a door with some windows in it. I'll try to prop it open afterwards if you want to take a quick look. Office Thrive is basically a shared office space. You get a desk, a filing cabinet, access to a printer, Wi-Fi, so you can come in and have an office that's not maybe in your third bedroom or Starbucks or something like that. Features a call room where you can go in there and make phone calls, and also a really nice conference room with a TV that you can broadcast and do stuff too. So have any questions about that, find me afterwards. I can definitely give you a tour. We do still have, man, look how slow that creeps across there, man. It's kind of spooky, actually. We have lock boxes, $20. If you need one, hit me up also. Somebody a while ago said, look at that, man. Does anybody have like bad memories of that stuff? Oh my gosh. Anyways, the cafeteria lunch, yeah, simulated meat, and you know what that stuff tastes like? Nothing. Mush. Anyways, that's totally free. It is the third Wednesday of every month, Landlord Lunch, and it will be here. Here's your text number. Whoa. Landlord to 545454.
I've done that, but I didn't get anything.
Did you think? Should have got one this morning and say, hey, it's here. If it doesn't do it, you might send it again and make sure you get it, because I think it kind of gives you some feedback. And just to make sure, and I get a few other random announcements from other companies, so it always throws me off a little bit, but there are several people that use that number. So, but text Landlord to 545454. Everybody got that one? Yes. Last but not least, we still have courses, Airbnbs featured out there. And then number of books and stuff like that. If you haven't picked one of those up, let me know, and I can also hook you up with that. Today, we have Justin Gentry, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure I get his name right. I kept wanting to call him Dustin for some reason. I know Dustin. He is a rehab pro. If you know him, you know he's kind of hard to get a hold of because he's doing the business. But he showed up today, so that's good, because there's going to be Keith Q&A or something, and he's going to be a lot more interesting to listen to. He stays busy. He's going to kind of answer any questions and also talk a little bit about. I hope you brought your best rehab questions. I have a few myself, but without further ado, we'll let you have it.
Hi guys. So just to start, in case any of you don't know, we are in the presence of greatness this morning. Pat Boynton has decided to grace us. If you have any questions about anything in real estate since the 1500s, that man right there knows. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
All right, when you get a little more successful, there, but you'll be able to afford a full set of pants. One or two more rehab.
Yeah, I'll go shoot a couple more of them. Well, guys, I mean, like you said, I didn't prepare anything today. Steven said just to kind of do it as a question and answer kind of thing. So I can start wherever you guys want to. We can go over financing, we can go over the rehab process, we can go over numbers, we can go over whatever you guys want to. So it's up to you guys. You guys fire away.
I heard you have some pretty great systems for your rehabs. Can you explain some of those?
They're like in reference to which part, I guess.
For your rehab process after you close on the house?
So
What's the system you use?
yeah, so basically I use a construction management software. So let me back up a little bit. Typically I'll have between 20 and 30 jobs going most of the time. And that might be houses that we're building. I keep a few of those going, and we keep a ton of rehabs going that we're going to rent, and we keep a ton of them that we're going to sell, and there's just a lot happening all the time. So we've got stuff going everywhere, so we got to be able to keep up with it. So for that, we use a construction management software called Co-Construct. And basically in that, I've been able to build out my schedules the way I want. And hell, I don't know how the hell you put that up there, but anyway, it's got Gantt charts and stuff like that in it. So I've been able to put in the sequence of everything that needs to happen, and then it shoots me reminders in my email or whatever. Hey, you need to order windows or whatever, because that's really what bites you on rehabs. Rehab's number one thing is getting the job finished on time. So if you forget to order windows, well, that's a 2-week process. So you just shot the whole job out at the end of it 2 weeks further down the road. And that happens 2 or 3 times. Well, you're a month, 2 months out. So when you're running several jobs, I mean, that's number one, is just keeping up with the deadline, keeping things ordered on time, and it's really not a whole lot more complicated than that. It's just keeping your stuff going on time. All about the deadline. Because the longer it goes, the more the interest cost goes up. It's all about the deadline.
Well, and finding good contractors that are honest and reliable.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, and contractors are just hard to deal with. But once you get them, you love on them and you take care of them, and they'll stay with you. Most of mine have been with me for 10 years or more, except for when my friends try to steal them from me, Pat.
My member stole one. I borrowed some. In fact, I'm borrowing one today.
Hopefully does you well.
Why don't you talk to him about how you look at a property and determine if you're going to rehab it? What kind of margins you think you're going to need to make a profit on it?
There's a lot that goes into that. So basically, whenever I'm looking at one that I'm going to flip, typically we do stuff that's had a fire or is a historic job or whatever. I really like doing the stuff that needs to be completely gutted and just basically rebuilt, because you can really control where that property is going to go like that. So whenever I'm looking at one of those, I pretty much know from experience, and if I don't know off the top of my head, I can go into QuickBooks and see what we spent on the last job that we did like that. So I'll go in there and figure up the cost of per square foot roughly what that job is going to take. If I go in there and gut everything out of it and I put it all back, and typically that's going to be moving walls, redesign it to make the property more functional for today, because that's what you run into a lot, is functional obsolescence. So that's number one. I want to make the thing functional. Figuring out how much it costs to get it there is the hard part. And once you've got the costs down somewhere, that becomes pretty easy. Number two, it's got to have good curb appeal. I mean, it's got to sell when you walk up to the building. If it doesn't look good when they pull up, you probably aren't going to sell it. Everything after what looks like inside the house is just supporting information for them. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit there.
What about your average price of rehabs? What do you have a wheelhouse price, or do you just take them all different kinds of ways?
All different. I mean, that's what makes that so difficult. We do so many that we're going to keep as rentals. We do a lot of mid-range rentals, like in Moore, stuff like that. For those, I want to be into it for no more than 70-75% of what it's worth after it's done. Because if you get above that, it won't cash flow, and that's what's going to kill you. It'll screw your ratios. For the rehabs, it's kind of the same numbers, but On those, I shoot for a 15% net profit after everything's done. Actually, I shoot for 20 and usually wind up around 15 or 18. Sometimes we hit one that goes really good, but I don't lose money on them. That's the main thing. So, yeah.
You got tips or best practices when it comes to building relationships with your suppliers, the pricing tiers with your suppliers, how you manage that?
I mean, most of that comes with history with those guys and paying them on time. If you'll talk to any of your vendors, the biggest problem they have is guys who come in and don't pay the damn bills. So if you'll take care of them, the same thing goes with your contractors. They just want to get paid. So, you see guys who come in and say, oh, okay, you submit your invoice and I'll pay you in a month. Well, that doesn't work for contractors. I mean, these guys don't have any money. So it's the same thing for vendors. If you just take care of them and don't ride them real hard, don't be a jackass, that kind of thing, and just build a good relationship with them, take care of them. Those guys will take care of you. And sometimes things come in priced high that you can't. They'll say, hey, I'll have to go over here this time or whatever. And they understand that. But typically I have, like for example, whenever I'm building, I'll use Fox or ProBuild. I've used Mill Creek in the past, but it's going to be one of those three. Typically one of those two, Fox or ProBuild. If I'm buying windows, it's usually going to be ProBuild. And I try to go back to the same guys over and over again because it's all about the relationship. Because if you're a new guy, they'll put you off, and it might take you 2, 3, 4 weeks for them to get out there. And if you're a consistent customer, they'll be there tomorrow. And again, it's all about the deadline. That way you know what to expect on cost too. But
Where do you buy shingles?
Roofer Supply. I have at Fox sometimes, but Roofers is just usually lower. And I have a really good relationship with them. So sometimes they're a little bit higher, but I can get stuff delivered today if I need it because I know them. And I can text Lori and
He likes, the owner likes rehabbers. I sold him a house years ago that I rehabbed in more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was way back with rehabbers.
Yeah. Yeah, they're good folks.
And so when you buy a house that you're going to rehab, how do you decide what level of quality you're going to do that house?
Okay.
Just the area or?
Yeah, basically it depends on what market I see buying there. So like if it's over in Crestwood or Mesta Park or Jefferson, the historic areas, the old areas, that's going to be a millennial buyer. So for those kind of houses, you can look on Pinterest and you can see what they want the house to look like Pinterest. So that dictates where I'm going with that house. Those are the ones that I want to gut and redesign the floor plan, make a kick-ass kitchen and all that stuff. That's what I want to do with that house. Now, if it's in Moore, there's not going to be enough margin to do that because it's only a $100,000 house. Hell, it costs $80,000 to do one of those sometimes. So for those, it's going to be a first-time buyer deal. So that kind of thing, I'll go in and I'll make the bathrooms and the kitchen look nice, but I won't replace all the cabinets, and I'll put granite countertops in. But you knock it down quite a bit. But comps usually dictate, and the buyer usually dictates where I'm going to take it. And it's the same thing on rent properties. You'll notice a buyer in Moore is different than a buyer up on Northwest Expressway in Council. It's two different kinds of people, so it's a little bit different tastes. But if I could say any one thing, it's know the market you're trying to sell to or rent to, whatever they're wanting. Know who you're trying to go to, because you'll see guys that come in and over here on the historic part of town, they'll do a cosmetic job and they'll try to put it at 130 a foot, and it's never going to fly. I mean, it just will not work because they shot it for the wrong buyer. I mean, that's for somebody that's a first-time buyer, and those guys are not. They might be, but they're attorneys and doctors and have more money to spend and no kids, and they're just a little bit different folks. Millennials, I think I might be a millennial, but we cuss them all the time, but I think I might be one. I don't know.
You're a redneck millennial.
Yeah.
There is such a thing.
That probably fits a little better. Does that kind of answer? I feel like those answers are pretty broad. It's kind of hard to focus them down some. Yeah.
What do you use evaluating whether it's a flip or a rental property?
I mean, how do I decide if it's going to be a rental or flip?
How do you determine?
Area and age. I mean, I do not want a 100-year-old house that's a rent house. I mean, even if I go in there and rebuild everything, I still don't want a 100-year-old rent house because the framing is just different, the foundation's different, it's just all different. if it's going to be something I'm going to keep, it's going to be probably it's going to be a 1960s or later brick house on a slab, typically. Unless it's just in an area that I see some serious appreciation coming in the near future. If it's that kind of thing, I'll deal with the hassle that comes with the house. But if it's something that I'm going to keep long-term for cash flow, it's going to be a little bit younger house now. I used to do, so is that kind of what you're asking, or are you asking about the numbers part of it?
Well, no, primarily just what the criteria, what the differences are.
I got you. I used to do a lot of low-end stuff, and when you're starting, that's the best way to do it because that's just what cash flows. There's a lot more hassle, but that's what cash flows. I mean, you can get them to make 2, sometimes 3 times the payment, and if you get one that's 3 times, that's really good. But the quality of the tenant is rough. I mean, you've got to deal with some rough people sometimes. So at some point, they'll pay off quickly, but you can kind of move out of that. And that's where we finally got a couple years ago. We don't have to do that anymore. We still have to deal with the old tenants, though. We're working our way out of that, too. Fortunately, the market's doing good, so you can be pretty creative with stuff right now.
Do you do your own property management?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have an office manager. She does all that. So we've got right at 170, 180 doors, and she handles all that stuff. I don't know any of the tenants anymore, thank God. They don't know me.
There's the part you're thankful for. That's the part you're thankful for.
I'd go into Walmart down in Noble, and God, I'd see 5 of my tenants. Jeez. You just want to hide and go in the bathroom because they're going to be coming and telling you, hey, this guy did what? Now I can go down there and nobody knows me. So it's good. I like that a lot better.
You just mentioned, the market's good right now.
Yeah.
Is that more flip side, rental side? Are you seeing any trends? Would you maybe just talk a little bit about what you're
for
feeling?
flips, I mean, it's great to sell stuff. It's harder to get stuff right now.
Yeah.
Like in 2008.
You might think one.
Yeah. I mean, when the market crashed, we bought until we were full to the gills. And there were multiple offers for a while on stuff that was real cheap. And that happened for about 6 or 8 months. And then after that, everybody got full and they couldn't buy any more and prices went down a little bit more. It was awesome. And then it just kind of slowly crept back up. And then since then, it's come on pretty strong. And now some of you guys that have been around a while, do you think it's equal to 2005 and 6 right now?
I don't.
Yeah.
But it's good, but I don't think it's that good.
Yeah.
We had crazy money then for BC borrowers, which I don't think we really have today.
Yeah. As far as investor competition,
it's strong.
Things have changed a lot in the last 10 years, technologically and everything else, and investors are able to reach out a lot more. So there's more competition with investors now. As far as lending goes for buyers, it's not as what it was, like he was saying, but I mean, it's harder to get stuff right now. So that also means don't get too aggressive on buying rent properties, things like that, because at some point the market's going to go back down again. Don't know when. Just right now the government's propping it up, so we'll just see what happens. But I mean, if I'm buying rent houses, I'm buying based on numbers from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, just to make sure that I'm covered. And it all cash flows, and that's all well and good, but I'm not going any further than that. Now, as far as numbers on rentals, I mean, they've slowly crept up too. I mean, you can still rent for about 1% of the value, roughly, of the house, and it's been that way pretty well historically. Well, I won't say historically. It's been that way for the last several years, and that's just pretty well stayed the same. So that's kind of following values. It does not follow that over here on the northwest side of town. In the historic areas, it doesn't work that way, but everywhere else, it's pretty close to that.
Do you find that you do any rentals in the historic part of town?
No, I don't. I don't want anything that old.
No, aside from that, though, they don't want to pay what the properties are worth and renting. They want to buy.
No, I mean, and the value of the property is just
staggering, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very strange because, I mean, you can buy that house for $40,000 or whatever, and then you can go into it and do everything in it, and it's worth $130 a foot or $240,000. I mean, I've got one that I paid $33,000 for right now that's 2,000 feet, and I'm putting it on the market today at $260,000. But I mean, there's no way that before I did the rehab that I could have rented it for $2,000 a month. It's
Yeah,
just-
that's what I was trying to get.
I mean, yeah, I mean the market's a little bit funny over there. So
And not only the guy, if he could pay $2,000 in rent, he'll just buy some.
right, just ain't gonna happen. So, it works pretty well with new houses like that too, though. I mean, you can get about $1 a foot for new houses, about 1% of the value, and it may be just a hair lower than that. But so yeah, as far as market goes, it's pretty strong right now. We'll see how long it lasts, but it's pretty strong.
On your rentals, you do an average cost. Say, okay, I rent this in. Average cost of when they go out, it's going to cost this much to go and refurb it again, or you have an average on each.
Oh, not really. I mean, I would say it all depends on the tenant, but average cost might be $1,000 or $2,000 per unit. And it depends on the house too.
Okay.
If it's one of the low-end houses, low-end tenants, it's a smaller house, but it still costs the same. If it's a mid-range house with a better tenant, it's a bigger house, but it still costs about the same. There's more square footage, so there's not really an average. I mean, the best way you avoid a lot of that stuff is good management and keeping good tenants in. That reduces your vacancy, and vacancy is your number one biggest expense.
Okay.
And if there's anything in the rental world that will kick your ass, it's vacancy.
Yes.
So you really got to watch that. That's why Robert's always pushing setting them up handicap accessible all the time, because those folks don't leave, and he's right. I mean, they'll stay there forever. No vacancy. That's what it's all about.
Where do you find your houses?
A lot of wholesalers. I don't market very much. I mean, I'll probably spend $1,000 or $1,500 a month in marketing, and I'll get a couple a month off of that. But now we've just been around long enough that people just call us all the time. Mostly wholesalers. I mean, I don't hit the streets like I used to anymore. Thankfully, I don't have to do that. But, I mean, I would just rather pay the wholesalers to find them. I mean, it's two completely different animals, finding houses and buying them and fixing them. And finding them takes a whole huge system that has to be monitored all the time, and I don't want to mess with all that. It took me a long time to figure that out. I was chasing my tail for a long time with that. It's just not, for me, it's not worth it. It's a full-time job just to find houses.
When you go to sell your flips, do you use a realtor or for sale by owner? Or?
My wife's a broker.
Okay.
Yeah, so she'll list them. We owner finance a lot of them too, and we'll do that ourselves too. But yeah, that way we cut the cost down. We pay ourselves part of that too. We don't have to shell it all out. This works a whole lot better. I mean, there are a lot of folks who will try to sell them themselves, but once you get to a certain point, I mean, it doesn't pay to try to do that anymore. It just takes too much time, ties up your money too long. You got to get it going.
Start back like to rehab. You start like with the comp, like what you think you can sell it for. Is that altered by the owner finance and those kind of things, or you pretty much go to market and work backwards to what you can get in it for and all that stuff?
Yeah. So basically, whenever I'm looking at a house, as far as if I'm going to sell it owner finance or just open market, that part doesn't affect what I think the after repair value is going to be. So basically, whenever I look at a house, I'm going to go in and I'm going to look at the after repair value based on comps. And like I said, I'm going to see who the target market is. I'm going to look at comps that are going to fit that market, and it's usually going to be the top end. And I'm going to predict costs based on that. So I'll have the after repair value. So I say it's $150,000. I'm going to have figured the repair costs. So suppose that's $50,000. So that brings us down to 100. I'm going to have figured closing costs on the front and back end, which is usually going to be $12,000-13,000 for that. So that brings us down to just say 85. We'll put it at 15. Then I'll subtract profit off of that. So just say $25,000 of profit. So what's that put it at? 85, 55?
60.
Yeah, something like that. That's how I figure it every time. And if profit's short, you just don't do it. And that's a hard and fast rule. I mean, it just works every time. That avoids you losing money. So don't tempt yourself into fudging the numbers just to get it and go. I used to do that, and I broke even on a ton of deals before I finally figured it out. Learned the hard way.
So what I think I heard you say is you start with the ARV and work backwards.
Yes. Yeah. ARV minus minus my repair costs, minus closing costs, minus the profit, and that's where you're at.
How much do you figure you're going to have on holding costs?
Oh, usually I figure for 6 months, but I get cheap interest, so that's not a huge part of the deal. The closing cost is,
It's worse.
yeah, that's really what used to bite me that I wasn't expecting.
And right now, you said your wife's a broker, so she's listing it, but then you must have other active brokers that are helping you get them sold?
Yeah, I mean, she lists it, but there's always another realtor that sells it. We sell very few ourselves.
Sure. But you can split it.
Yeah. And the fact that she's a broker, I mean, we charge 1.5% to our company, but that's still an expense to me whenever I'm figuring it out. I don't count her commission as part of the profit. And I would recommend that nobody do that, Brian. But, yes, sir.
So my question is about materials. I'm trying to get the most inexpensive materials for the best price. Trying to get the best price for materials, basically.
Yeah. So, like, what kind of materials?
Let's see here. Fencing, tile, countertops, sinks, just everything. I'm having to do it all. I'm amazed that even my savviness is still way more expensive than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So, as cheap costs, are your deals based on getting things cheap?
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to get below my top number that I have for materials.
Yeah. I mean, first I would say budget more in for materials. Budget that high when you start. That way you don't get a bit on the back end. But as far as getting stuff cheap, I mean, the stuff costs what it costs. I mean, you can get tile cheap over at Habitat, 69 cents a square foot if you want to go pick it up. I used to do that a lot. That saved us a lot of money.
Yeah.
Fencing.
Why don't you go down the list for some of these newer guys of the kinds of places that you go? You mentioned Habitat, but I mean, tell them about where you buy your paint, where you buy your roofing, where you buy your lumber, where you buy your carpet, where you buy your linoleum, whatever. It might help some of the guys that are a little bit new.
So, like I said, roofing was Roofer Supply. Carpet, I typically use Carpet Depot. I'll just say that.
You don't really use
no
it.
pressure.
No, I don't. Since he's in the room, I better not.
Trying to make him feel good. You know?
Yeah, I won't stab him in the back while he's here. I use Floor Gallery a lot for tile. If you don't have tile guys, they install for $2 a foot, and they deal with all of that stuff. Because I mean, I call them and I say, come and measure it, and I pick the tile and they put it in. And if it's wrong, I call them and I say, hey, this is jacked up, which it is every time, just so you know. Tile guys are going to screw it up every time. You can draw a picture, which we do every time we stick it on the wall. Say, I want tile just like this, okay? Okay, good deal. You come back and it's all backwards. Did you see the picture? I mean, so I'm saying just be prepared for that. So they'll do that for $2 a foot.
Labor only, right? I'm sure.
Yes, that's labor only. And that's just flat work. I mean, if you do a herringbone pattern or something like that, it's going to go up quite a bit. But they handle all that stuff, and that's what I look for a lot of the time. And they do carpet, too. And they're pretty competitively priced, but I think Russ beats them pretty good quite a bit.
What about paint?
Paint, I usually go to Kelly Moore, which is more expensive. But the reason I do that is it's a higher quality paint. On the rehabs that I do, and the rental rehabs that I do, it's going to last longer. We use something called Durapoxy typically, and you can take a baseball bat to that stuff, and it's going to last a long time. And it costs more up front. It's not like going to Home Depot and paying $70 a bucket for the Glidden Pro or whatever they got over there. We used to use that for a long time, and it just doesn't hold up as well, doesn't touch up as well. So it saves us money in the long run. Plus, they deliver for free. So I can call them and the paint's there the next day and nobody's going to pick it up and any of that. Any more you think of?
I'm just plumbing fixtures, whatever. I mean, I just want these people to get an idea
so
where you go for most of the things you buy.
Builder's Warehouse?
No.
Kitchen cabinets?
No, cabinets I go to Suburban Cabinet. They do a shop-built cabinet. I don't like ordering cabinets. Like used to, I use Topco a lot. And if you need Formica countertops, there's a place to go. But you can't you can't really buy countertops at Home Depot for mica tops for as cheap as they can do it, and it just works out great. But they make a cabinet that's, I mean, it's reasonably priced, I guess. It's still expensive, but it's not the same quality, and I want something that's going to last a long time. So Suburban Cabinets is a shop-built cabinet, and they're very well built. You still have to paint them after it's done, though. So that's one part. As far as plumbing stuff, like when you need supply lines, what all valves? What are all the other little things you got to have for
I
housing?
got to have tubs, stools, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, lock supply.
Lock, yeah.
Yeah, and that for your electrical parts too. Like if you'll check the price at Home Depot for supply lines, they're going to be $7-8 a piece. Lock supply is going to be $4 to $5 a piece. Just that quick. And if you'll count up how many you put in a house, it's significant. I mean, it eats you over 5 or 10 houses. It's a lot of money. So lock supply, set up an account there. Let's see, where else? We use Affordable Door for our garage doors. Those guys are fantastic.
What?
Affordable Door.
Do they do servicing?
Yes. Yeah, any problems, you just call them and it's done. I don't worry about it. And they're very reasonably priced.
What about front doors?
Like, what kind of front doors?
Well, like a pretty, a fancy double, 2-door.
Like if you're going to do a double door, I typically go to Pro Build. First, like on my new houses, that's going to be a $600, $700, $800 door. That's going to be Pro Build. Now I don't do those kind of doors on any of my rehabs. Zero. Home Depot's got them for $280 or $290, and they look like Craftsman doors, and it's a steel door, and they look fantastic. They paint up great, and they're very good, very good. I've never had one complaint off somebody that walked up. Oh, that door looks just saves you a lot of money.
Probably a good part of the curb appeal.
Yes, it is, and you can just get it a lot cheaper. And speaking of that, interior doors and trim, we use Norman Door and Plywood for that. Norman Door and Plywood. They've got 5 locations. They've got Norman, Western, Edmond, Southeast, and El Reno, I think.
Yeah.
Or Yukon Door.
Same company.
Yeah, they own their own mill. So if you'll compare prices on trim, they're about half of what it costs to get it at Home Depot. Interior doors are a lot cheaper too.
Plus, they have a lot of trim that you don't necessarily find at someplace like Home Depot.
Yeah.
I was just doing a crown molding thing on a house I'm doing, and I just took a piece over there. They said, "Oh yeah, we'll go back here in the back." They must have had a rack that must have had 65 different pieces of trim in it, and they looked through them and said, "There it is." And I was super glad to give them $60 for it.
Mm-hmm.
I needed it, but you can't get that at Home Depot. You're going to get what they got, and that's it.
Yeah, Home Depot's like $1 something a linear foot for some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And they'll be 50, 60 cents. Some of it'll be cheaper than that. I mean, they like I said, they have their own mills, so their costs are a lot less, but you can also call them and tell them what you want, and the sales guy will come out and measure, do a takeoff, and they'll deliver it, and that's it. You just have to remember to do it on time. Because if you don't, you're going to be 2 weeks out waiting for your doors and stuff. Their interior doors are cheaper than Home Depot, but you got to order them on time.
So what about granite?
I use a guy named Eddie Guzman. I just call him and he comes and measures it. What's that, Premier Stone, I think it is? Yeah. I can give you guys his number. He's probably going to kill me for that. Do you guys want his number?
Yeah, this is for him. Why would you kill him?
A lot of these guys
Well, if we all pulled the name
now.
Yeah.
He does pretty good. He keeps up well. 314-2314.
314-2314.
Yep. 314-2314.
Justin, I'll throw out a couple of things that people made. I've just learned one of them just this last week. You can go to Lock and you can buy a jetted tub for $386 with all the parts except for the faucet. And it'll cost you $120 to $180 for a damn tub. I don't know what price range house it is. Everybody would rather have a jutted tub. Whether they use it or not, they'll like it when they buy it. It's the best deal around. $386, and that's the whole damn thing. All the pumps, all the whole thing. We installed one this week. It's great. The other is Lumber 2, which is part of Fox.
Yeah.
You can buy seconds on shingles. And the Timberline quality textured 25, 30-year shingle is $50 a square when they got it. For your rental property, I have used them for 5 or 6 years, and they are way as good as anything else. I mean, I've never been able to determine what was seconds about them.
Where is it?
Lumber. It's
Lumber
called
2.
Lumber 2. It's a division of Fox. They have one in Tacoma Park. They have one over at I-40 and I-240 and Sooner. I don't know, a couple of them. But anyway, any of the Lumber 2 or Fox will have the seconds. They'll be able to put you in contact with them. But for your rental property, all you want to do is keep the damn thing from leaking.
Yeah. Yeah, don't use them on rehabs. But for rentals, they're fantastic.
Where'd you say for the tub?
Lock.
Okay.
Now that tub he's talking about, that's a single person jetted tub. If you go to Jetta or something like that, that's going to be $700, $800, or $1,000. They do that. They don't make any money on it, but it pulls people in. And I mean, it's an awesome deal.
Where do you get it?
Lock Supply.
Lock Supply.
Okay.
Heat and air.
You'll find with heat and air, electricians and plumbers, you're going to be bouncing around all the time. And that's just the way it is, because this guy will do good, and he'll get loaded up, and you can't get him on the phone, or
Price goes up.
Yeah, they're good guys, but it goes up and down all the time. So you give it 3 or 4 months, and he will have successfully run all of his people off, and he'll be slow again, and you can get him back out again. But it's just, you got to keep 3 or 4 on the hook all the time. So I don't have
formula for your rehab costs, like so much per square foot, percent of the ARV, or how do you figure that?
I have a rough cost. So like if it's on one of my fire damage houses, if it's a brick house on a slab, I know that house is going to cost me $45 to $48 a foot per square foot under the roof. Now let me make that real clear. We're talking about total under the roof square footage. If you're going to try to come up with per square foot costs, you have to figure your garage space and all that, because it all costs. So like one of those, on a slab, if I'm going to gut that, that's going to be around $45 a foot to go in and redo everything. New cabinets, new everything. On one of the historic houses, if I'm going to gut that, that's going to be $62 to $64 a foot typically, something like that. It's a much different animal. I didn't know that going in, but they're a whole lot different animal. You wouldn't think that would make that much difference, but it does.
Do you buy all the materials for your tradesmen?
Typically, yeah. I mean, it depends, but I've set up so many accounts, like he was talking about Lumber 2. If you have an account at Fox, you can get stuff at Lumber 2 on your Fox account. But that's one thing that I've been very aggressive about, is setting up my own accounts. And that way the guys can go in and get stuff. That way you're not having to do materials draws. Now, every now and then somebody comes up, like we had a welder that's going to put some AC platforms on one of our apartment buildings. So I did a materials draw with him, but I don't have an account somewhere to go get that. But everywhere else, Lock, Fox, ProBuild, I don't have it at Forest, Kelly Moore, all of those. We have accounts at all those, so the guys can just call and get what they need, and it comes out. So yeah, I don't like doing materials draws. I mean, there's a couple different reasons. I mean, obviously guys can take the money and run, but the other big benefit you get of buying your own stuff, having your own accounts, is you get more history, which means you can get it cheaper. So if you're running 20, 30 jobs and they see all the history for all those jobs, you can get your materials a lot cheaper. If all the guys are going to get stuff on their own thing, well, you're paying full price. Mm-hmm. So if your intention is to scale it, it's a lot better to do that. You have a lot more control.
Who do you use for a dumpster?
I use Waste Connections.
Waste Connections?
Mm-hmm.
For what?
Dumpsters. I don't remember their number, but I'll pull it up here.
But there's a lot of difference in those guys too. You can shop those guys. If a guy's got some dumpster sitting, he's liable to get right with you. Mm-hmm. If there's been a hailstorm lately and his dumpsters are all gone, he's liable to not be right with you. But the next guy is liable to be, depending on when his stuff was out and when it came in.
Yeah.
I know I did a job now, and we saved a lot of money on dumpsters by looking around.
Yeah. Waste Connections is 745-2942. What's 745-2942. What you're going to find with dumpster, I mean, like you said, you got to shop them. We have a very good reputation with Waste Connections, but I might have 20 dumpsters at a time. So So whenever you don't have that much, you need to shop around, because what's going to eat your lunch on those is rental. After you start getting enough of them, they don't charge you that rental anymore. Like, I think somebody told me the other day that Sooner, is it called Sooner Disposal? Anybody use it?
Sooner roll off.
Sooner roll off. Apparently they weren't charging this guy the rental, and he only had one. So that helps a lot. But most of them, if you have it more than 2 weeks, they're going to charge you to rent the thing, and that gets expensive fast. So that's the big thing you want to watch, but you need to shop around for them every time. And then when you get a relationship with them, it works pretty good. But you also, like, we'll have 15, 20 dumpsters at a time, but we only get 40 yards too, because we take other stuff over to them all the time. But some of these places only have 30. Sooner, I think they don't have a 40. I think they only have a 30 yard. It depends on the size of your job and what you need. Alan?
Normally you pay for that 40 yard
I better not say.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a really good bulk discount, and honestly, I don't know what it is exactly anymore, but they won't give it to you unless you're doing 15 a month or something like that. So, but they're good folks. I mean, we do a lot with them and have for a long time. Alan, what were you had your hand up, Paul?
Granite. You have to do it.
Oh, okay.
So you talked a little bit about how to save money on materials and those type of things. What's some tips and tricks as far as like the process? I mean, ways you can get in there and things we don't think about because we're not as experienced maybe about doing the rehab, saving costs. Just the tips and tricks maybe you've learned along the way.
That's a tough one.
Try to come up with a real good stumpy question.
Yeah, that's like
Well, don't you have a list of I will never do this kind of thing again?
We don't have that much time. You're way too old a lady to ask him a question like that. You're not going to hear the end.
Close on it before you fix it up.
Yeah, I would definitely have it closed before you start working on it. Yeah, I mean, I can't. I'll be honest, I don't look back a whole lot on the stupid stuff that I've done. I mean,
that's a big one right there.
I mean, that would cost me a couple grand. All right, well, so I can't really answer the stuff that I won't do again until it's there in the face. Oh, I remember doing that. I was doing that again. But no, I don't really have a good list of stuff that I won't do.
I got one for you. Don't ever do a move-in house. That's been moved into the location that you're buying it on.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah.
I got one of those.
Did you do good on it?
Yeah.
You're exceptional in because those things have so many hidden problems in.
But I tore almost everything out of it and redid it all. So, yeah.
Man, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes, sir, I do.
I will say one. You might think this is goofy, but buying rent houses, low-end rent houses, I never buy one anymore that's got a front house and a back house where you got to go run the front to the back.
Oh, why? Tell them why.
It's damn near impossible to keep it rented. You'll have it vacant 4 times a year. It's typically on the same meter, so somebody in the back is jacking up the bills on the front or whatever. They're just a pain. I don't do that unless there's separate access and separate meters and all that stuff. So there's a never do for me. I won't do that ever again. I've had several of those. So I don't like them.
Don't buy any apartments that have bills included where it's 1 meter for the whole damn apartment complex, 1 gas meter, 1 electric meter.
Yeah, you'll find apartment complexes. The water meter is typically always on one. I mean, they don't have not ever built them really where it's separate water meters for all of them. But yeah, if you get into stuff that's all bills paid, you're asking for it. It's going to be Section 8 tenants or whatever, and they're going to be a pain. Most of them are going to be druggies. So all bills paid stuff's another good one to stay away from.
That's what.
Yeah, they're rough.
Who do you use for insurance on flips?
That's a good question.
We have 3 or 4 different ones. We use what used to be Elite. Taylor Richardson. What's he now? Thrive. Yeah, he's one of them.
Thrive.
Yeah, we use Oklahoma Insurance Group in Norman. But honestly, it doesn't really matter a whole lot because what you're going to find with insurance is you have to shop all the time. I mean, they're just a pain. We have to shop every year for all of our stuff.
Absolutely.
Because they'll creep them up every time. So
I ran into one that 60 days after the last of the construction's done, even though you paid for 6 months, you don't have insurance anymore.
Say it again?
You have to buy 6 months worth of insurance.
Builder's risk policy.
Right, but if the last of the construction's done February 1st, 60 days later, they won't cover anything in their insurance policy.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of stuff like that. I mean, you don't usually hear about it, but a lot of those policies have stuff like that written in them.
But it can hurt.
Yeah, it can. I mean, that's part of just having insurance is just a pain. I mean, you got to watch it all the time because of stuff like that right there. And there's just not really a better way to say it. They're a pain in the ass.
I had an insurance agent that called himself, or insurance people, the mafia.
He's right. Yeah.
They like the mafia.
Yeah, they don't want to pay when it's time to, and they're a pain to deal with. And I will say, sometime I had a house burned down last week or 2 weeks ago. I think, but I mean, I have had no problems with that one. They called, she came out and said, "Well, this one's going to be pretty cut and dry." I said, "All right, good deal." You couldn't see inside of it, but I mean, it's insured for $40,000 and it's burnt. So when they told me, it's like, yes. Yes. Hated that house. That one came in a package deal. Not upset to get rid of that one.
Now, where were you when the fire broke out?
I was on the lake.
Could you be specific?
You follow. What other questions?
Just like that, if it's a burn or something, do you rebuild on it, on a burn or anything like that?
Oh yeah, a lot of times. Well, that one I won't. Okay. That one I'll sell. I'll owner finance it. One of my guys hit me up about it yesterday, and I do that quite a bit. Yeah. Do you guys know much about owner financing? If you don't, you need to look into that.
I'm not a contractor, dude.
Yeah, owner financing is. There's some risk involved. I had to foreclose the first one I ever did, so I swore off of them for a while. But since then, I've done a bunch of them, and they are fantastic. I mean, they're a great way to extract money out of something that you would not otherwise be able to get money out of. Just like a fire damage house. I mean, that house, if I stuck it on the MLS, I would probably not be able to get more than $4 or $5 grand for it. But I'll owner finance it for probably 8 or 9, and get payments over the next couple of years. And it's an awesome way to do that because it's a different market.
How do you structure those? Balloon notes, 5 years?
For something like that, I'll just however they want to. I mean, it's not like the cash flow is going to make a whole lot of difference, so I don't care. I have a couple different ways of doing it. So, like, if I have low-end rent houses that are perpetually going vacant, if it's going vacant 3 or 4 times a year, I'll owner finance that house on a contract for deed for 40 or 50 grand. And I'll set it up however they want to, as long as their payment is pretty close to what my rental income was. So I'll set it up, and I've got a couple of them are on 30-year notes.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
Whenever I look at their loan balance, I feel terrible. But
I don't feel that bad.
That's the way a 30-year note works. I mean, I've got one that I sold for $84,000 5 years ago with $4,000 down, and he's paid off about $1,000 of it so far, and I've almost got it paid off. So.
And so you're writing in interest and stuff like that. I mean, you're collecting principal interest, tax and insurance. You're having them pay the tax and insurance.
We used to. If you're going to owner finance, just escrow it and make them pay you.
That's right.
Because it's going to be a full-time job just getting them to pay the insurance every month because it's going to expire every month. And then when taxes roll around, you're going to have to threaten to evict them.
So just collect it up front, and you're charging 8%, 5%.
For those kind, like I said,
whatever it works.
We will let either the term or the interest float to make sure that house will bring the same, approximately the same as the rental income was. I know that's probably flying over a lot of you guys' heads because a lot of people haven't done contract for deed stuff or owner finance stuff before, but typically you have the length of the term, the price, and the interest rate. Those are the 3 parts of it. And if you'll let one of those float, one of those 3, you can be real creative with it. So you'll probably just have to sit down and play with numbers to see how it works. But I've got some that are on 15s and some that are on 30s and some that are on 20s, and typically they're going to be 10, 11, 12% interest, something like that. That's on the low end stuff.
Can you keep the deed in your name until it's paid off?
That's what a contract for deed does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. So, and most of I don't get a ton of them back, but I haven't had to foreclose one of those since that very first one a long time ago, and that one was just she was paying, but
Well, if the deed's in your name, it's not really a foreclosure, is it?
yeah.
Yeah, foreclose it, yeah.
If they raise a question about it, they have equitable interest and you have to foreclose. Fortunately, typically they just walk. Or they don't show up to court when you evict them, and that's the end of it. So they can't say anything after that. But if they show up to court with any papers, the judge is going to say, "Oh, you have interest. You got to foreclose."
So you try
that's
to
the risk that you take.
You try to evict first. If
Yes,
they,
sir.
hey, we're going to take them to eviction court and kind of let the I don't want to say mind games, right? It's like they got a mentality that they're tenants and they got to move.
Yes.
Someone that maybe call a lawyer or something will show up and say, "Hey, this ain't an eviction; it's a foreclosure." Then you
Correct.
go over. Okay.
Have you ever been successful with cash for keys?
I've never tried it. I used to have a big Maglite, so I would get the guys and go show up at their house and get out of here. That worked. I never did cash for keys, though. It was either that or we evicted them. I used to do a lot of dumb stuff with my tenants. I don't do it anymore since I have kids, but there were a couple like that.
Why don't you go into a little bit more detail about the foreclosure rate on these contract for deeds? How many contract for deeds would you say you've done?
I probably would say we've done 40 or 50 of them.
And how many have you foreclosed?
I've foreclosed one.
Okay, here's the point I'm trying to make. If you'd have done a note and a mortgage, you'd have foreclosed every damn one of them.
Yes.
He foreclosed one who fought him. The others all left peaceably, or more or less peaceably. You didn't have to do anything, and because there was no mortgage filed of record and no deed in their name, the title never showed them. And so when they gave it back to him, he had clean title to give to the next person without a foreclosure.
Exactly.
If he'd have put a note and a mortgage on it, like the realtors will tell you to do, he'd had to foreclose every single one of them. If you have to foreclose, use Mike Brogan. He's an attorney here in town. He specializes in it. That's all he does. $1,400. He'll do one. He'll do it in about 60 days. Same thing can be a quiet title suit. He's about the same price for a quiet title suit.
Very good guy. 760-2525 is his phone number.
Now he knows.
760-2525.
Do you file your contract for deeds?
No.
Mike Brogan.
No, I mean, nope, not really any point of filing them.
I talked to my lawyer about that, and he said that if the buyer filed bankruptcy, it will go to. Is it trust?
Yeah, you'll go to the.
Yeah.
If you file it,
If they file bankruptcy, it'll tie it up.
yeah,
right?
if you file the contract for deed, but I mean, like I said, there's risk.
You file it, it's going to go with the contract.
Yeah, if you file it, it will absolutely, because that gives them.
The other way.
No, if you file the contract for deed,
You'll have
anything that
foreclosure,
happens,
for sure.
they have public record of equitable interest.
Okay.
So any bankruptcy that happens is going to attach to anything that they have an interest in. So if it's not filed, it's not to say that it won't happen. They can show up to court with their papers and show that they've got equitable interest, and they'll still attach. But if they don't ever say anything, nobody's ever going to know. So they're going to have to say something if that happens, if that makes sense.
Joanne, don't file them. Ever file them. Ever. Trust me. Don't ever file them. Never.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue, but I need to.
I mean, that's location.
Yeah, I know.
Usually just start with maybe online documents that you do, or you get an attorney to draw that for you. What do you kind of?
Attorneys don't like to draw them.
Yeah, Mike will.
Yeah, Mike will.
Yeah, but well, I say that. No, I mean, I would just talk to some of the investors in the room and get somebody else who's done that and get their papers.
If you'll see me, I'll give you one that Robert Elder drew.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that really works the best. Just what the if you get it, I said Mike, he will, but you don't want to do that because on the low end stuff, your intention is to, if they go south, you want to evict them.
Sure.
The attorney is going to set it up bulletproof, and unfortunately, that means he's going to tie up both sides in the process.
Yeah, you don't want that.
So yeah, you want to make it as easy as possible, which means not doing that.
So in your contract for deed, it goes till it's paid off, then they get the deed.
That's right.
Correct.
And it's probably got some language in there that says, hey, if you default a certain amount of days, you're automatically a tenant again. Yeah. Okay.
It does. I mean, we don't follow that hard and fast, but it does.
Yeah, and it just
I
kind
don't want the
of
house
put
back.
them in the frame of mind.
Yeah.
That it's like, hey, if you go south, you're really just a tenant.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. It's just
it.
You send them a nasty letter and highlight the copy of it where it said they're tenant now. 9 out of 10 of them will just leave.
Yeah, and so you don't do lease options. Certainly don't do a deed and mortgage.
Correct. I've done some lease options in the past. I don't care that much for them personally.
Okay.
I mean, they're successful, but it's just a different market now. One thing that we were talking about a while ago. I mean, I foreclosed one, and there was one reason I had to foreclose that one, and it was poor client choice. This lady she was a little bit nuts, but she had previously been upper middle class. Her brother was an attorney. She knew what she was doing. So she knew how to string me up in all different ways. So the foreclosure cost me $14,000, where it typically would cost $2,500, because they just strung it out for 3 years. So I got it all back. I won. It was the day of sheriff's sale when they finally brought a check. But that was poor client choice. So and the higher priced house you do, the more problems you're prone to have if you structure them the wrong way. So again, know who you're selling to. Know your target market.
Don't sell to any attorneys. That's the simple answer. Don't sell to them.
I don't even rent to attorneys.
No, never. They can't buy a house from somebody for cash. You're not done with them.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost them anything to sue you.
That's right.
Now, I do some owner finance stuff on upper end. Like my new houses, I'll owner finance those, and it works fantastic, but it's structured an entirely different way to fit those clients. Those are set up on a tiered interest rate with a 5-year balloon. It starts at 6 and goes to 7 the next year, 8 the next year, and 10 the fourth year. Balloons out in 5 years, and they have to refinance me then.
And I get a substantial amount of money down on those.
Yes, I get a lot of money down, and they have to refinance me or we foreclose, period. And we all know that going in. I do that with an attorney, and that way it's all tied up. Because they're more sophisticated buyer and they know what they're doing.
How much do you get down on the lower end ones on your contract fees?
Whatever we can. $1,500 to $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 sometimes. On the upper end stuff, it's a minimum of 5%, and a lot of times I'll get 15 or 20%. And that's usually a small business guy. But I wouldn't recommend everybody just run out and do that one. That's more advanced, probably. If you've done a couple of them, fire away. But there's a lot of moving parts to that one.
One last question. Anybody got one?
Section 8, do you do it or?
Not anymore. Section 8 a few years ago, they were paying at or above market rates. Actually, they were paying above market rates several years ago. So it was worth it to deal with all the hassle, but now they don't anymore. So it's not worth it to me, because all the tenants got to do when they come in there for inspection is say they didn't do this or they broke that light or whatever. And you're on the hook for paying for it, and it runs up the cost and they don't pay. So no, I don't do it anymore, not unless I absolutely have to. If you're on the northeast side of town, you're going to have to. If you're down at Oak Cliff, you're going to have to. So again, when you're buying the house, you know where you're going to, who you're probably going to set your rent to, but I don't go into those areas anymore, so I don't have to do that. Don't like messing with them.
Does that include Norman? You don't like Norman Section 8? Or you ever do any Section 8?
I've done it in the past, but again, it's just not worth it.
Inspectors are really hard.
I like them. They're rare. I've got 3 out of 25 tenants are Section 8. I still screen them and get some good ones, but
yeah, I just haven't found it's worth the hassle. It's just too easy to find tenants right now who pay regular rates without dealing with government bureaucracy.
That's what I've kind of found in Norman. It seems like all the building they've done is thinned out. They're used to, I'd be able to rent it in a weekend or a week, and now I'm dropping it down a little bit, and I'm struggling to find a good tenant.
You'll find that in Norman. There are a lot of guys who are sucking wind right now.
Yeah,
especially single family guys, because first thing, OU they got their thing set up so the students have to live in student housing, period. And they have not slowed down building apartments at all.
They're going crazy. Yeah.
So that, and there are several other guys that are around town still building apartments. And this is already an 80% market, so they're still sucking up more tenants. I don't know where they're going to get more of them if there are. But all of that, if you've got houses, you're going to have to do them nice, or you're going to be sitting for a while. There are plenty of guys who've been sitting 6 or 8 months in Norman just because their houses aren't nice enough.
Mine moved pretty good, but I've definitely, it's because I priced them at 90%, of what I could get for them. If I could get 1,000, then I'm going to go ahead and rent it for $900 or something and try to get it moved quick.
Yeah.
Where it used to, man, I'd have 5 people show up day one and they all want it. Now it's, I get a couple of people interested or want it within a week.
Yeah.
But that's only because it's priced so good and I fix them up nice. I mean, that does.
Yeah, that's the only thing to compete with is price and how it looks.
Yeah. I fix them up nice and price them to move, but it's like, anyway.
All right, let's give Justin a hand.
Yeah, Justin.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter at Landlord Book and always be buying assets.